Hey, how's it going? My name is Ace, and I'm making this review video because I recently purchased this controller, and I'm not someone that makes a lot of review content. If you look at my YouTube, I don't really have any review content, mostly just speed runs and a lot of old gaming stuff from back in the day. This controller has bothered me so much with the experience that I've had, I'm compelled to make a video. So first and foremost, if you found this video, thank you for watching. I apologize, I'm not a professional tech reviewer, so I don't have all the fancy lights and the cool angles and all the stuff that the people that do this professionally do a very good job with. I'm very just casual with this, but I need to do this because it drives me absolutely insane with the experience that I've had and what this controller is supposed to do, and that's specifically this ROG Raikiri 2 Xbox wireless controller. You know, the reason why I purchased this controller because I recently bought a ROG Ally, Xbox X here, this guy, and I really enjoy this handheld so far. There's a lot of things about it that I don't like, but this video isn't really about the ROG Xbox Ally X, this device here. But I purchased it because I'm one of those guys that I enjoy having all of my peripherals match, right? All the same brand, all the same manufacturer, really just because I like it all matching, but also it kind of helps you know that everything's going to work together most of the time, not all of the time. But this controller has been a pain in my butt, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why. So first, let's just talk about the good things. There's a million reviews on YouTube about this controller, and I'm not really going to do it justice in comparison to those videos. But what I will say is for an Xbox controller, I mean, it feels good in my hands. All the buttons, you can hear the button clicks. They're very good button clicks, and everything feels good. Everything responds well. It's a little light. The controller's a little light, and the reason why I say that is because I have the Xbox Elite Series 2 controller, and I love this controller, right? And one of the reasons why is because this controller feels premium, and it is premium, but just everything about this controller feels amazing in comparison to this ROG controller. This just does not feel like quality, in my personal opinion, because it just doesn't have the weight. It doesn't have the quality materials when it comes to touch, and everyone's different with that, right? So maybe for you it doesn't matter to you as much, but for me, the Series Elite controller just feels amazing in my hands. But the reason why I purchased this is because I have the ROG Ally X, and I wanted this controller to play on that device. And we all know the ROG Ally X is essentially just a computer. It's a laptop handheld that has a full screen Xbox mode to play games through the Xbox app. And I was going to set this up with a dock to attach to a monitor and just use the controller to play. And that's the reason why I bought this, as well as having it all match. But what I have to really talk about with this controller is the setup. The setup and the configuration for this thing is abysmal. And the reason why it's abysmal is because of the 4 different areas that you have to update this thing just to get it to work, just to get all of the face buttons to work. Just to get this thing to work properly. I still haven't got this thing to work properly. I'm actually going to return this controller because of how poorly the configuration setup has been. To be fair, the ROG Ally X isn't a full-blown Windows. It's kind of like a Windows Lite, if you want to call it that, with its features and capabilities, but it's essentially a Windows machine. So you got to treat it like a computer to get everything connected. I'm going to try and show some of the user interface of the software set up here on screen, just so you can kind of see what it looks like. But I want to walk through that and kind of discuss all the different areas you have to update this thing just to get it to work right and be able to map the buttons. And the first thing you have to do is on the ROG Ally X is you need Armory Crate, which is how all the different software is up to date. So the first thing you have to do is you have to update that, right? Make sure that's fully up to date, and that's something you have to do for the console, but the controller's firmware is also connected through that, so you have to make sure that that's fully up to date. The first time you connect the controller to the machine, you have to do it through Windows. Now you can probably do it through the setup screen through Armory Crate, but for me, I connected it through Windows first just to make sure the Bluetooth was connected properly, and I knew that everything was connected. But the updates don't come through Bluetooth. Bluetooth is only so that you can use the controller. It doesn't update the controller. For that, you need the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, or you need to plug it in directly through a dock. Or if you have, USB to USB cable, you can do that as well. Here's the next part that really stinks. To configure the controller, you have to then use a web-based system, a web-based connected system to map the buttons and then continue to do updates. These 4 face buttons on the front here, these buttons will not work properly until you've connected it to this software and then updated it. And again, I'm going to try to show some of this on the screen so you can see it, but these buttons will not work on your ROG Ally X until you have the software connected correctly. And not only do you have to, and I've never had to map controller buttons through a web browser before. I don't know why that is. To be fair, the Elite Series 2 has an app that you have to download through the Microsoft Store to set this up and update it if you're on a PC. If you're on an Xbox, it'll just do it automatically. But the fact that I have to use a web browser and connect this through the web browser and allow permissions to do that. I've never had to do that before. Maybe that's not something new for other tech, but for me, I've never had to do that for a controller. That's just insane to me. And then once you've connected the controller through the browser, then you have to download 2 more software packages to get everything configured correctly. And for a premium controller that you are going to go out and purchase, either to use exclusively on your Xbox device, or maybe you're trying to sync it up with your ROG Ally X like I'm doing, or maybe you're just using it to play games on your PC, I think the setup process is just way too convoluted for a controller. There's too many steps. The web-based configuration panel for the controller is uncomfortable. It's just not something that makes sense for a controller, which should be just plug and play. Maybe a little bit of configuration to update the firmware and to maybe remap the buttons. But if you're going to spend this amount of money on a premium controller, my recommendation is just go straight to the Xbox Elite 2 controller. Both of these controllers are fantastic when it comes to the operation of the controller, right? The way it feels, the way the buttons react. They both come with pretty much the same suite. It comes with the case, the charging dock, the paddles for the back. I don't really use the paddles, so I don't have them on either of these. But you have all of the same stuff. But the fact that I have to do so much additional setup just to get this thing to work the way it's supposed to work, especially on my ROG Ally, it's just not worth that. It's just not worth the headache. I'd rather spend the extra 20 bucks and just have a way more seamless experience on this controller than with the ROG controller. But some people really care about those specific types of buttons and the specific type of board that's actually physically inside the controller. So if that really matters to you, then obviously, yeah, go ahead with this controller. But if you're not someone who's really into all that and just wants to play the games and wants a controller that works, I can't recommend this one, just solely based on the setup process, all the packages you have to download and install, half of which don't work automatically the first time. You got to play with it a little bit, uninstall, reinstall. It's just a big headache, and I just think it's just not worth all that effort to get a controller to work. When it should work pretty much out of the box minus a firmware update. At the end of the day, yes, is it a good controller? Of course, it plays well. It has some of these premium features. It's got anti-drift TMR joysticks. It's got fantastic buttons, like the micro switch pads here for the buttons feel and sound great. Everything feels good. Everything's clicky. Everything is responsive. And so when it comes to that, I think it really matters. And if you prefer a lighter controller, this is a good controller. I think this is probably still heavier than a normal Xbox controller, like a modern one. But when it compares to the Xbox Elite Series 2, this controller is just, if you're going to spend the money, you got to go for this guy. But yeah, I'm going to return this controller. This controller just was too much of a hassle, and the Xbox Series 2, Elite Series 2 just works way better. And I can play that on my Ally X without any issues. This thing is just a pain in the neck, and I just don't recommend it for that fact. So I really appreciate you watching the video. Again, I'm not a professional reviewer. I know there's a lot of other features of this controller that I didn't necessarily cover or read the full spec sheet. If you're interested in this controller, please go check it out on the internet. Go watch other YouTube videos. There are hundreds of them, and they are very well made of people who do this professionally and who really go over every single specification and all the different things you can do with this controller. And I highly recommend that you check it out if you're interested. If you like ROG style hardware and this is something that you really think is up your alley, then definitely check it out. The packaging is fantastic. I'm trying to give it credit where credit's due. I think it looks really nice. The packaging is nice, the materials are good, but it's just not, I just don't recommend it because of the setup. And I think that if you have a little bit more money to spend and you're trying to buy a new controller, just go with the Elite Series 2. because the experience is just better, in my opinion. And I think that matters. You know, just a little cherry on top, you can go and customize your own controller now on the Xbox website. The options are very limited because almost all of the different features are sold out, like the different colors and the different patterns, but you can still get one somewhat customized to you. And I think that's pretty cool. The fact you can do that with like the best controller on the market for the Xbox or for playing on a PC, I think that's kind of cool. But that's just me. You know, again, I know I probably didn't cover all the details on this controller. I did my best. If you are someone that knows a lot more about this controller or has had a different experience, you know, please leave a comment. I'm totally open to hear other perspectives. This is just my personal experience. This is what I went through with it, and I'm just bummed it didn't work and as seamless as I hoped, because I liked having all of my peripherals match, especially that I have, you know, my ROG Ally X, and then I have the dock and I have the controller, and it can all, you know, I can connect all the lights together and they can all look the same. I like that kind of stuff. That makes me happy. But, you know, unfortunately, I just don't think I can keep this controller. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.